Very good afternoon to all of you. Thank you for joining for the special briefing from the Sushma Swaraj Bhavan. We've just seen the conclusion of the bilateral discussions on the occasion of the state visit of Honorable Giorgia Meloni, President of the Council of Ministers of the Italian Republic. A visit is still ongoing, and our conversations with the Prime Minister have concluded in Hyderabad House. To give us a sense of the discussions and the visit so far, we have the privilege of having with us Foreign Secretary Sir Shri Vinay Quatra. Also joining us on the dais, Shri Sanjay Verma, Secretary West in the Ministry of External Affairs, as well as Joint Secretary Europe West in the Ministry, Shri Sandeep Chakravarti. Sir, may I hand over the floor to you?
Thank you very much. Secretary West, Sanjay Verma, Sandeep, friends from the media, thank you very much for coming here this afternoon for this special briefing on the ongoing visit of Italian Prime Minister to India. I'll just make some brief opening remarks and would be happy to take questions thereafter. At the invitation of Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji, Her Excellency Ms. Giorgia Meloni, President of the Council of Ministers of the Italian Republic, is currently on her first state visit to India. Prime Minister of Italy is accompanied by Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister His Excellency Antonio Tajani and a high-powered business delegation. This is the first bilateral VVIP visit from Italy to India after a gap of 5 years. As you are aware, Honorable Prime Minister Shri Modi and Prime Minister of Italy had held extensive and productive discussions on the sidelines of the G20 summit in Bali, Indonesia in November last year. In terms of program, Prime Minister of Italy arrived earlier today morning, was accorded a ceremonial welcome at the forecourt ceremony in the Rashtrapati Bhavan, and has just concluded her official talks with the Honorable Prime Minister, both in the restricted format and also in the delegation level format. She also paid her tributes to Mahatma Gandhi at the Rajghat, and thereafter Honorable Prime Minister hosted the Prime Minister of Italy a luncheon at the Hyderabad House. Later during the day, Prime Minister of Italy will also call on Honorable Rashtrapati ji. Prime Minister Meloni will also participate in the 8th Raisina Dialogue as the chief guest and keynote speaker alongside Prime Minister Modi later this evening. In terms of the substance of discussions and the decisions that and the understanding that the two leaders arrived at, I will just make some broad brush 8 to 10 points which were key takeaways from this meeting. First of all, both the leaders agreed and decided to elevate India-Italy partnership to the level of strategic partnership. As per Italian Prime Minister herself, her visit to India was a matter of strategic choice. The fact that she decided to undertake the first bilateral visit in Asia to India was a strategic choice and not just a routine bilateral visit. 3, Prime Minister of Italy appreciated the leadership of Honorable Prime Minister on matters of regional and global importance, in particular when it comes to concerns, interests and priorities of the global south. 4, the discussions covered the entire gamut of bilateral, regional and global cooperation. 5, and I must mention this important point, both the leaders held discussions in a very warm, cordial, friendly, frank atmosphere between the two leaders. A strong bond of friendship between the two leaders was very, very clearly visible during the discussions. 5, in terms of areas of importance which were discussed, on which important decisions have been taken in terms of next steps. First is the area of defense cooperation. The memorandum of understanding on defense cooperation has been concluded. In terms of subsectors within the defense, it was clear during the discussion that with legacy issues behind us, the door is now open for the industries on the two sides to cooperate more strongly in this area, particularly in the field of manufacturing, co-production, co-design, co-innovation. Two, military exercises to be expanded and deepened to all levels within the armed forces. Three, maritime cooperation, and I'll talk a little bit more about it when we come to specific areas of maritime cooperation a little later. The sixth element which they discussed, again an important element of our strategic partnership besides the defense, was need for deepened cooperation in the field of space, cyber and sea as three of the key strategic sectors in our cooperation. Work will now begin between the two sides to identify specific areas of partnership in each of these domains and of course their subsectors. Another element of cooperation which was identified for progress is HADR cooperation, humanitarian assistance and disaster relief, and within that especially the need for joint exercises, greater number of joint exercises to better prepare our systems to respond to such challenges wherever they occur in the world. Eighth, the broader segment of economic cooperation, the focus was on 4 or 5 key subsectors. First, on trade. As you would have seen and heard the two prime ministers speak during their remarks to the press, bilateral trade volumes between India and Italy are at all-time high. Last year I think they clocked $15 billion. Growing investment between the two economies. Prime Minister underlined to the Italian Prime Minister the scale, the extent and the range of opportunity that exists in the Indian economic ecosystem for the Italian industries to come and participate with. Third subsegment within that was a cluster of design, innovation and manufacturing. Again, converging on the complementarities between the two economies when you look at these three items in the cluster. I should also mention that just as we speak, a little while from now, there would also be a CEO roundtable between the business delegations of the two countries, which is being co-chaired by Honorable Commerce Industry Minister on our side and the visiting Foreign Trade Minister from the Italian side. The fourth subsector which was talked about was on the friendshoring and cooperation on the supply chain resilience, partnership in that. And fifth subsector, a very crucial subsector which was spoken to about both the leaders, was relating to complementarities involving the two economies in terms of skill set available in India and the industry needs which are there in the Italian economy. These 5 subsectors within the larger scale of economic cooperation, larger segment of economic cooperation was spoken about. Ninth, a related area but equally standalone of standalone importance in itself, was that both sides agreed to progress on the Migration and Mobility Partnership Agreement. A declaration of intent was signed between the two countries on this to take forward our cooperation in this fast-growing segment of partnership between different economies of the world and India. The other important segment which was highlighted by the two leaders was cooperation in the field of culture and people-to-people connectivity. In fact, the Italian Prime Minister described India and Italy as two cultural superpowers, and both of them agreed to strengthen our partnership in this space, particularly also in the field of higher education, exchange of students, and of course cultural exchanges between our two countries. 10th, on regional and global issues, I'll just highlight 4 or 5 sub-elements which were discussed and then stop thereafter. First of all, the Italian Prime Minister expressed very strong support, wholehearted, full support for India's presidency of the G20. Second, deep understanding and appreciation for India's position on the Russia-Ukraine conflict. 3, both leaders shared concern on the impact of the Russia-Ukraine conflict on the global economic situation, in particular its impact on the more vulnerable economies of the global south. And 4, agreed to cooperate deeply in the Indo-Pacific. Prime Minister welcomed Italy joining in the IPOI, Indo-Pacific Oceans initiative, which was launched by the Prime Minister a few years ago. And in this context, they discussed at some length on what the two countries can do to advance their cooperation in the maritime space between the two countries. I would stop here, and if there are questions, me and of course Secretary West is here to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Please introduce yourself and your organization before you take the question. I saw the hand first in the back, please. Yeah.
सर, मैं मधुरेंद्र न्यूज़ नेशन से। जैसा कि आपने बताया कि इंडो पैसिफिक कोऑपरेशन को लेकर भी दोनों देशों के बीच बातचीत हुई, मैं जानना चाहूँगा क्या इंडो पैसिफिक में स्ट्रेटेजिक पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से भी इंडिया और इटली एक दूसरे के करीब आएंगे, और क्या मैरीटाइम एक्सरसाइज की भी संभावना है?
Please go ahead.
Sir, is there a specific
yourself,
okay,
please.
sir. So Rishikesh from PTI. So is there any specific platform identified for co-production and manufacturing under Make in India product? Make in India
Specific platform.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Siddhant. Microphone, please.
Hi, sir. Siddhant from Vion. How much the Chinese aggressiveness was discussed during the meeting between the two leaders?
Sudhi.
Sir, Shruti Ranjan from Bloomberg. So if you could give us some more details on the defense cooperation, what areas, and in the strategic framework, what are the key areas that Italy and India would want to look at going forward?
So.
थैंक यू। जहाँ तक इंडो पैसिफिक में सामरिक सहयोग और सहकार्य का प्रश्न है, मैरीटाइम डोमेन में ख़ास तौर पे जो आपने कहा, जैसे कि मैंने कहा कि दोनों नेताओं के बीच में विचार विमर्श के दौरान ये स्पष्ट रूप से सामने आया कि इंडो पैसिफिक का जो क्षेत्र है वो एक सामरिक क्षेत्र है। उस क्षेत्र की जो चुनौतियां हैं, उस क्षेत्र के जो अवसर हैं, वो भी सामरिक हैं। उनकी सामरिकता के मद्देनज़र दोनों देशों के बीच में सहयोग, सहकार्य आवश्यक भी है और उसके अवसर भी हैं। स्वाभाविक है कि मैरीटाइम क्षेत्र जो है उस इंडो पैसिफिक में सामरिक सहयोग का एक महत्वपूर्ण भाग है। और मैरीटाइम सहयोग के भी भिन्न अंग हैं। उसमें जैसे आपने बताया एक्सरसाइजेस वो एक भाग है, और भी उसके तत्व हैं जो कि उसमें निहित हैं। तो जब भी मैरीटाइम मैरीटाइम सुरक्षा सहयोग का प्रश्न उठेगा, ये स्वाभाविक है कि उन सभी प्रश्नों को जो है मद्देनजर लेके ही दोनों देश और दोनों व्यवस्थाएं आगे बढ़ेंगी। On this entire question of the defense cooperation platform for co-production, co-innovation, and Sudhir, your question on specificity. As I mentioned in my opening remarks, while talking about the defense cooperation, the two leaders focused on 3 or 4 specific elements. First of all, it's important, and the two leaders recognized it to be important, that the legacy issues in our defense and security partnership, since they are behind us, it is important that the two systems, the two economies, the two industries now begin to move forward and identify specific areas, 1, 2, within those specific areas, elements which are ready to move forward in terms of direct and tangible cooperation. There, given the nature of defense industry on both sides, it was felt necessary, that it was felt very timely that the cooperation in the field of manufacturing in harnessing the kind of ecosystem that is available in India, both in terms of highly skilled manpower, in terms of production base which is available in India, in terms of user base that is available in India, in terms of our large defense capacities, in terms of not just our own needs, but how India and Italy can partner to supply to the rest of the world, how Indian industry can be part of the global supply chains while through partnership with Italy, military exercises, as I mentioned, at all different levels. This forms a, these are elements within the larger set of defense sector engagement and cooperation between the two countries. At this stage, I don't think, it's perhaps a little too premature for the two systems to talk about individual platforms or equipment sets in this. But going forward, we would only assume that the industry on both sides will come together, will identify these specific sectors within the defense field that they need to move forward on, and forge and build industrial partnership around those areas of cooperation. Yeah. On your question from from Siddhant on the Chinese aggression, as I mentioned earlier in response to the first question, that when they spoke of 1, elevating our partnership to strategic level, 2, when they spoke about the regional and the global situation, the way it's developing, naturally the challenges and the opportunities in the Indo-Pacific form an important constituent of it. And pretty much all important developments regionally and globally figured as part of that. Both leaders share their perspective on how they look at developments unfolding in different parts of the world, how the two can come together to partner in a manner that we are able to harness the opportunities, but also mitigate the shared challenges that we face, including in particular in the strategic domain.
Thank you, sir. We have a little running out of time. Okay, I'll just take Akhilesh. Quick.
So I'm Akhilesh Suman from Sansad TV. Just can you throw some more light on Russia-Ukraine conflict? What was Italian Prime Minister's?
Go ahead, please.
Akhilesh, can you please repeat your question?
I wanted you to throw some more light on Russia-Ukraine conflict. What was Italian Prime Minister expectation from us, and what was our response?
Okay.
For Secretary Shashank Matu from the Mint. So you mentioned maritime cooperation. Before the Prime Minister's arrival, there was talk of Italy posting a liaison officer to the Information Fusion Center. And another question was about whether we'll see more of an Italian military footprint in terms of under the rubric of maritime cooperation in this part of the world.
Yeah, this is the last question. So we'll have to close here.
Majay from Doordarshan News. What are the 5 sectors that you mentioned? I believe it's space, cyber, sea, skills and industries. If I'm not wrong, please correct me. And please give us the detail about this migration mobility partnership agreement. Does it? Yeah.
May I request, instead of asking FS to replace, it's on record. We will get it to you. But on
Because
the MMP
I
from
thought I
that.
mentioned much more than 5 actually in that sense. Akhilesh, on Russia, Ukraine, very quickly, as I said right up in the beginning, there was a very deep understanding and appreciation by the Italian Prime Minister of India's position on Russia, Ukraine. She appreciated very much and recognized very much that India as a voice of peace, India's advocacy, Prime Minister's advocacy, that dialogue and diplomacy is a path forward, is the way forward, is perhaps the only way forward to resolve the conflict, was very, very deeply appreciated, and both leaders agreed to stay in regular touch on the situation on Russia, Ukraine. Shashank, to your question on liaison at the IFC, I think that has been done, so it's a confirmation. I think on the larger question of military presence, I have already covered it under the rubric of what I said earlier in the field of defense cooperation. I'm sure things will begin to flow out of that. It's not correct for me to highlight specific or something which is yet to happen, and we'll see it down the line. To the Darshan question, as I said, I think I commented on, I underlined and highlighted sectors, many more than 5. Yeah, on the MMP, as I said, declaration of intent has already been signed on the mobility and migration partnership agreement. I think it's a great arrangement for which at multiple levels. It's a strong, good arrangement at the economic level because it meets the industry. It's also a very good arrangement at the level of people-to-people connectivity because it brings the two societies closer, especially the youth segments of the society. And as a result brings the relationship much closer, makes it more deeper, something which is of tremendous value to all of us.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you also to Secretary West, sir, as well as Joint Secretary Europe West for being here.
Thank you
Good
very
afternoon.
much.